Hey guys, how are you all today? We are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto got an ice queen pregnant? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. It was October 10th and today would be the day a legend is born. But first, he had to be, well, born of course. This hurts, Databane. Uzumaki Kushina yells. Just hold on a little longer, Kushina. Namikaze Minato, the Yondaime Hokage, says to his beloved wife. He's coming out, Sarutobi Bawako assures the red-haired woman. A black-haired baby comes out of the red-haired woman's womb. Minato gets up to reach for his baby, but Bawako slaps his hand away. The mother shall hold him first, Bawako says. Kushina grabs the boy and smiles. He looks just like you, Kushina says while comparing the black-haired baby to her black-haired husband. His eyes are midnight black, Kushina comments. He has my father's eyes, Minato says while reminiscing of his time with the legendary shinobi, Uchiha Madara, who also happened to be his father. I think we all know what happened after that. Time skip. It has been 10 years since that incident and here we see our protagonist, Uzumaki Namikaze Uchiha Naruto, sitting against a tree since it was lunchtime. I can't believe my shitty old man left me with nothing. Here I fucking am starving because I decided to buy a new kunai set for the Hiraishin. Well, at least he left me that much, Naruto thinks to himself, extremely annoyed. Sorry, Kurama, the Kyuubi, mumbles. I wasn't saying you were shitty, I was saying my old man was shitty, Naruto thinks, sighing internally. Naruto and Kurama had met when Naruto was 4 after extremely exhausting himself. There, he also saw a large scroll containing many jutsu that his father left him through a Sharingan genjutsu. Kurama was Naruto's only friend and the only friend Naruto thinks he would ever need. He enjoys feeling alone and being alone, and that's why he never made a move to make any friends or even get a girlfriend. You should go back now, lunch is about to end, Kurama comments. You're right, Naruto thinks while getting up. Naruto's outfit consisted of a dark blue jacket with the zipper open and the hood off his head, a black shirt under his jacket, black Anbu pants, and dark blue shinobi sandals. His hair was as long as Minato's with the signature long bangs framing his face. Kurama had told him of who his parents were and who his grandfather was. Naruto truly didn't hate his parents, well, his mom at least, but he was tired of running out of money since everything was overpriced for him. Naruto walked inside before he was swarmed by fangirls. Being the cold person he is, Naruto simply walked past all of them and sat down in the very back while looking out the window. So the Ice Prince returns, Kiba says to Shikamaru. That guy really is troublesome, Shikamaru says while laying his head down on the desk. They see a bunch of boys run to the door and swarm a girl. And there's the Ice Queen, Kiba says. Kiba was one of the few boys who didn't have a crush on Satsuki. Instead, he would rather find a more compassionate girl. Alright, settle down, Iruka yells as everyone goes back to their seats. Today we will be talking about the Yondaime Hokage. It also happens to be 10 years since the day he died. Just fucking great. Not only is it my birthday, but we're talking about Toussaint today, Naruto thinks while laying his head down. Did he have any children? One student asks. Yes, Naruto thinks. No, he did not. Sadly, he did not have any living family members, Iruka says. He and his wife died on the day of the Kyuubi attack. Who was his wife? Another student asks. We don't have that information, Iruka says. The Sandaime had purposefully not told Iruka of this information since he didn't want Naruto's classmates to be suspicious. He knew that Naruto already knew, but he couldn't risk the class knowing. We do have a picture of him, though, Iruka says while handing the first student the picture. As soon as she looked at the picture, her head snapped towards Naruto, who was supposedly asleep. She handed it to the next student and the cycle continued until it was Naruto's turn. There he is, Naruto thinks before handing the photo back to Iruka. Iruka returned to his desk and Naruto noticed a piece of paper on his own desk. He opens it up and it reads, Happy birthday, Naruto Iruka. Naruto looks up and thanks Iruka with a nod. Naruto had intentionally not told anyone in his class his birthday since he thought it was pointless. He really didn't care if people remembered his birthday or not. Scratch that, he would rather have people not remember his birthday since he would get beat, and nearly killed, every single year. Naruto, can you give me a fact about the Yondaime? Iruka asks. He sacrificed his own child? Namikaze Minato was known as the fastest man alive due to his signature jutsu, the Hiraishin. Naruto says in his normal cold tone that makes almost all the girls' knees weak. Correct, Iruka says, not surprised with the results. They learn a bit more and Iruka notices that everyone is bored out of their minds. How about we do some traditional shinobi sparring? Iruka asks as most of the class gets excited. Satsuki and Naruto remain silent. The whole class files outside and they start their sparring. Satsuki wins her match and it was time for Naruto's match. Next up, Uzumaki Naruto and Inuzuka Kiba, Iruka calls out. Just my luck, I got the Ice Prince of all people. Kiba thinks to himself before he and Naruto head to the ring. Shall we dance? Naruto asks. Everyone in the class had to get used to Naruto calling fighting dancing even though it confused the shit out of all of them. Sure, Kiba says. Hajime, Iruka yells. Kiba lets out a battle cry before running at Naruto. Naruto, on the other hand, calmly walked towards the Inuzuka. Time seemed to slow down as 1 minute. Kiba was running at Naruto, the next, Naruto had walked past Kiba who was on the ground unconscious. The only one who saw what actually happened was Iruka and Satsuki. While he was walking past Kiba, Naruto had quickly chopped the back of his neck knocking him out. He's getting more and more graceful every time, Iruka thinks to himself as he watches Naruto walk back into the crowd. Winner, Uzumaki Naruto, Iruka announces as all Naruto's fangirls cheer. What just happened? Choji asks. I don't know, but I think Naruto knocked him out, Shikamaru says. Time skip. It was now graduation day and everyone was sitting down waiting for Iruka and Mizuki to walk in. Mizuki was an assistant sensei that had started about a year ago and he seemed to have a vendetta against Naruto. Both Mizuki and Iruka walked into the room. Hello class, today we will be doing the genin exams. It's been a long journey and I want to tell you, I'm proud of what all of you have become, Iruka says with a smile. First, let's do the written exams. Mizuki and Iruka start to hand out the tests. When Naruto receives his test from Mizuki, he immediately senses chakra on the paper. He casts a genjutsu on his eyes that made them appear his normal midnight color, but his eyes in reality are crimson red with 3 tomos. The real test was a lot easier than the one that Mizuki had made with the genjutsu. He quickly finishes the test while deactivating his Sharingan and releasing the genjutsu on his eyes. He flips over his paper and waits for the test to finish. Bad luck for you, demon. Even if you do get an above average grade, you'll still fail. Mizuki says, smirking evilly. A bit of time passed and everyone was done with their test. They turned in their test and Mizuki wasn't too happy. Naruto had gotten perfect scores on the exam and the genjutsu wasn't even released. Okay class, we will now be doing the kunai and shuriken test, Iruka announces as everyone files outside. A couple of people go before Satsuki goes. She gets a 10 out of 10 on kunai and a 9/10 on shuriken. Damn, could have done better, Satsuki thinks to herself. Uzumaki Naruto, Iruka calls out. Naruto walks up and notices the weapons not being sharp enough to pierce anything. He sighs and channels Futen chakra through the weapons before throwing them at the targets. He didn't miss a single one. All the girls squealed at Naruto to marry them and whatnot, but he ignored them and walked back to where he was standing. How in the hell? Mizuki asks himself. He goes over and pulls out a kunai and sees green chakra coming out of the kunai. Futen chakra? This Gaki, brat, really is a genius, Mizuki thinks bitterly. A couple of more students go and now they were up to sparring Mizuki. The rules are that you have to last at least 3 minutes in the ring with Mizuki-sensei. If you last all 5 minutes, then you get a perfect score. In the unlikely scenario that you knock him out, you will not only get a perfect score but you will get more points added to your final grade, Iruka explains. You know the drill. Satsuki was able to last all 5 minutes and now, it was Naruto's turn. Hajime, Iruka yells. Let's dance, Naruto says as he charges at Mizuki, kunai in hand. I'm not holding back, so prepare yourself, demon. Mizuki yells internally. Naruto fakes a kick on Mizuki's right before punching him in the gut with his left hand. He slashes down with the kunai cutting part of Mizuki's right forearm. Mizuki snarls and tries to punch Naruto with his left hand. You're a natural righty, so it was the smartest and most obvious to go for your right arm. Naruto says in his cold tone while looking Mizuki straight into his eyes. His black eyes emotionless and empty as ever. He must have found out from when I write something down in class, Mizuki thinks to himself. Naruto grabs Mizuki's left arm and kicks him hard in the gut, causing Mizuki to cough up blood. Naruto lets go of Mizuki's arm and jumps up. He flips midair, gaining momentum, and lands a hard axe kick to the back of Mizuki's head, knocking the Chunin out. Everyone stares at Naruto wide-eyed, aside from the Ice Princess herself. That was a pretty smart move, but it was dumb to reveal your strength like that. Although, I have a feeling you're holding back, Satsuki thinks to herself. Satsuki, in truth, could have taken on Mizuki and won easily. He wasn't even a challenge to her thanks to her 2-Tomo Sharingan. Satsuki is a lot stronger than Canon Sasuke. She's able to use her Sharingan and has the 2-Tomo Sharingan instead of Sasuke's uneven 1-Tomo 2-Tomo Sharingan. Naruto, on the other hand, is a lot stronger if that display was anything to go off of. I'll give you both of their chakra releases now. Satsuki has Kaden, Fire Style, and Unknown Raiden, Lightning Release. Naruto has Kaden since he's an Uchiha, Raiden, and Fuuten, Wind Style. Naruto catches Satsuki's gaze before the Uchiha princess turns away with a grunt. She definitely could have beaten Mizuki, but she was holding back on purpose, Naruto thinks to himself. Winner, Uzumaki Naruto, Iruka says after getting over his shock. All the girls squealed and rushed over to Naruto while Satsuki had to resist the urge to facepalm. Naruto sighs annoyingly while walking back to where he was standing before. The rest of the students finish up before they head inside for the final part of the exams. All you have to do is the Kawarimi no Jutsu, Substitution Jutsu, the Henge no Jutsu, Transformation Jutsu, and the Bunshin no Jutsu, Clone Jutsu. Iruka explains. A few students go, some proud with headbands on their heads and some crying. Satsuki comes out with a headband around her forehead as a bunch of fanboys swarms her. She goes back to her seat, which is in front of Naruto. Iruka-sensei told me to tell you that it's your turn, Satsuki says to her fellow raven-haired classmate. That was the first time they had ever interacted during the academy. Naruto looked at her with his stunning midnight-colored eyes and nods. Naruto walks into the room and immediately feels something is off. My chakra feels weird, thinks Naruto. He looks around and spots a piece of paper with the kanji for disruption on it. That specific seal is used to disrupt one's chakra control. Naruto looks over to Mizuki and sees him smirking evilly. Joke's on you, to learn the Hiraishin, I had to learn the art of Fuinjutsu, Naruto thinks while looking at Mizuki with his stunning eyes that would make most girls fall to their knees. Alright Naruto, please perform the Kawarimi no Jutsu, the Henge no Jutsu, and any bunshin of your choice, Iruka says. Do you mind if I swap with a kunai? Naruto asks Iruka. Do as you please, Iruka says with a smile. Naruto pulls out a kunai and throws it at Mizuki. About 10 inches from Mizuki's face, Naruto swaps with the kunai, saving Mizuki's face. You okay, Mizuki-sensei? Naruto asks in an icy tone that sent shivers down Mizuki's spine. Yeah, Mizuki says nervously, but he was internally seething. Naruto nods and walks back to retrieve his kunai. He spins it on his index finger before placing it back in his weapons pouch. He does a one-handed ram seal before a puff of smoke appears. When the smoke clears, there was standing the Yondaime Hokage glaring daggers at Mizuki while bringing up one of his 3-pronged kunai. Minato smirks before a puff of smoke appears and Naruto is left there with his normal, apathetic, expression. Okay, lastly, do any bunshin of your choice, Iruka orders. Naruto nods and holds up a half-ram seal. A puff of smoke appears and 2 Narutos are on either side of the original. Cage bunshin bitch, thinks Naruto. One thing Naruto had been working on was being able to use one hand when doing hand signs since that was one of the things his father was able to do. Naruto had learned the Kage Bunshin after stealing the scroll of sealing and returning it. It wasn't the first time and it certainly wasn't the last. No, he should have failed. I can't call him out on cheating or they'll know I was trying to fail him, Mizuki thinks. Congratulations Naruto, I'm really proud of you, Iruka says with a proud smile. Naruto felt a warm fuzzy feeling inside of his heart and for once, he let out a genuine smile. The smile left as soon as he came and Naruto was back to his normal, cold, icy, and calm personality. Arigato gozaimasu, Naruto says with a nod of his head. Pick up a headband, Uzumaki Naruto, you are now a genin of Konohagakure no Sato, Iruka says. Naruto nods before grabbing a black headband and tying it around his neck. He didn't want to tie it around his forehead since he would rather let his long raven hair run rampant. Naruto walks out before he's swarmed by fangirls. He sighs annoyingly before going back to his seat. Time skip. Naruto was currently sitting at the tree he always does for lunch. He opens his lunch and sees 2 onigiri that he made for himself that morning. Naruto was actually an amazing cook, but no one, besides the Sandame, had ever tasted his food. He was about to take a bite of his food when before he hears a whimper. He looks up to see a fox sitting in front of him looking extremely hungry. Naruto looks down at the onigiri in his hand before extending his hand to the fox, signaling it to eat it. The fox looked weary but took a bite anyways. See, that wasn't so bad, Naruto says with a small smile. Naruto may be the ice prince, but he had a soft side for animals. Naruto grabbed the other onigiri and started to eat it while he watched the fox eat the other onigiri. Naruto reached his hand out and slowly pet the fox's head, making sure not to disturb it. If I had enough money, I would take him in. If you had enough money, you would take in every animal, Biju included, says Kurama. I can't argue with that, thinks Naruto while petting the head of the fox. Time skip. Everyone was getting picked up from the academy before Naruto came out and everyone noticed his headband. They let that demon become a ninja? One adult asks. I don't know why, another says. Whisper all you want, I don't give 2 shits, Naruto whispers to himself. Naruto audibly sighs. No one was waiting for him. He was alone. He would always be alone. He's the Ice Prince, the prince who needs no one. He lives for himself. He's a self-hating demon. He basks in the loneliness. He gets stronger in the loneliness. He's Uchiha Naruto. It was the day everyone would be getting their teams. All the girls were hoping to be on a team with Naruto while all the boys wanted to be with Satsuki. Alright class, first I want to say that I'm extremely proud of you. Iruka starts off before Naruto stops paying attention. He was currently trying to forget the events of the night before. Flashback. Naruto was walking home after a long day of training. He was exhausted but he kept his hands in his pockets and kept his eyes closed, only using his sensory ability to see around him. His eyes shot opened and widened when he felt multiple chakra signatures coming straight towards him. He felt about 15 chunin, somewhere around 5 genins and 10 villagers. He sighed and started running, but they kept running after him until he reached a dead end. Well, this sucks, Naruto thinks before turning around before being met with a punch to the gut, causing him to cough up blood. They start to kick and punch him before stabbing him in the lung. Kurama, I need help. I'm on it, Kurama says lazily. Naruto tries to breathe but it didn't work due to the hold inside of his lung. His lung finally healed but he was kicked on his side. You shouldn't deserve to be a ninja, a chunin says. You're one to talk. You don't even know the difference between a scroll and the kunai that it holds, Naruto spits out. What the hell does that mean? The chunin yells out angrily. If you don't know what that means then you really don't deserve to be a shinobi, Naruto says while holding his sides, still not making a face. Why you? The chunin yells before slashing Naruto's chest with a katana. Time skip. Naruto was panting in a pool of his own blood. Fuck, this hurts, Naruto thinks to himself. Why don't you leave? Kurama asks. My parents defended this village as shall I, maybe not from the inside but from the outside. I was born here and I will protect the place I was born, says the raven to his fox companion. You were born in a cave outside of the village, argues Kurama. Grunts Naruto back. Naruto looks down at his clothes and his body. Most of the wounds had healed but the one on his chest was going to leave a badass scar. He looked up at the moon and estimated it was midnight. They had been attacking him for nearly 3 hours. End flashback. Team 7, Iruka calls out. Huh, they already started teams? Naruto asks Kurama. Yeah, they did, they only got up to 7 and they didn't call your name yet, Kurama says to the raven. Aha, Naruto thinks. Uzumaki Naruto, Iruka calls out. Almost all the girls and some boy crossed their fingers hoping to be on Naruto's team. Haruno Sakura. Ha, Take that Ino pig. Love conquers all. Sakura yells. I'm doomed, Naruto mutters under his breath. Satsuki, who was sitting next to Naruto, heard him say that. And Uchiha Satsuki your Jonin sensei is Hitaki Kakashi, Iruka finishes off. Sakura was practically shaking at this point. She was on the same team as her crush and her idol. Life just couldn't get better for the young Haruno. Naruto and Satsuki looked at each other with emotionless expressions. At least I'm not on a team with someone weak, was the thought of the Uchiha princess. The Uchiha heiress, maybe if I can trust her I can tell her of my secret. I mean, she at least deserves to know she isn't completely alone, was the thought of the Ice Prince. They both turned back to the front of the classroom. Team 8 will consist of Hyuga Hinata, Inuzuka Kiba, and Aburame Shino your Jonin sensei is Yuhi Kurenai, Iruka says. I get 2 of the 4 quietest people in the class. At least it isn't the Ice Prince or Princess, Kiba thinks to himself. I won't be with Naruto-kun, Hinata thinks sadly. Team 9 is still in commission so we'll move on with Team 10. Team 10 will be Yamanaka Ino, Akamichi Choji, and Nara Shikamaru your Jonin sensei is Sarutobi Asuma, Iruka calls out. Damn it forehead, whatever, Naruto-kun will be mine, Ino says while boring holes into the back of Sakura's head. Little did she know, a certain Uchiha had a better chance than her. And that Uchiha definitely wasn't Uchiha Itachi, Satsuki's older sibling. Iruka carried on with the teams until he was done. Now, all you have to do is wait for your Jonin team sensei, Iruka says. The team senseis come in order before it's time for Team 7. Team 8, I'm Yuhi Kurenai, Kurenai says as Team 8 gets up. Anyo, excuse me, where's our team sensei? Sakura asks. What's your sensei's name? Kurenai asks, already knowing the answer. Hitaki Kakashi, Sakura says. You better get comfortable, a man with a beard and cigarette in his mouth says. Team 10, I'm Sarutobi Asuma, meet me at Yakiniku. Ha, the loser team gets the loser sensei, Kiba says but is quickly shut up by an icy glare from Naruto that chilled him to the bone and back about 7 times. Asuma and Kurenai sighed knowing that out of them and Kakashi was the strongest by far. Time skip. Sakura was agitated, Satsuki was looking out the window, and Naruto was reading a scroll on Kaden Jutsu that he stole from the scroll of sealing. He only had one more which was Kaden. Daikonrin, fire release. Pandemonium. It sounded extremely dangerous to Naruto yet he wanted to learn it. To put it simply, the user would set parts of the battlefield on fire. They would then draw the heat from the fires around the battlefield with a particular set and hand seals. The heat from the fire would be shaped into little balls before the user ordered the fireballs to close in on the enemy. The opponent would absorb the fire causing them to explode due to internal pressure caused by the fireballs as well as the heat. It was by far the peak of Kaden Jutsu. This looks hella hard to learn but it's worth it, Naruto thinks before copying onto a different scroll and erasing it from the original scroll. He put the scroll that had the dangerous Kaden Jutsu away before grabbing the original scroll and walking over to Satsuki and sitting down next to her. Satsuki looked at him with a raised eyebrow. What? Satsuki asks coldly but Naruto wasn't affected by it. Here, Naruto says while handing her the scroll. What is it? Satsuki asks. Open it and find out, Naruto says in a, are you stupid, voice. Fine, Satsuki says before opening the scroll. Her eyes widen when she sees the contents of the scroll. It was some of the most powerful Kaden Jutsu she had ever seen. How did you get these? Now that would be telling. Maybe if you can make me trust you, I'll tell you, Naruto says with a wise smirk, that made the frickin' Ice Princess herself blush. Satsuki looks into his dazzling eyes and feels herself getting lost in them so she asks a question to distract herself. Why though? Satsuki asks, trying to ignore the ever so prominent heat on her cheeks. We're going to be on a team together, right? Naruto asks the Ravenette who nodded her head. Well think of it as a, what would you call it? Act of kindness between newly formed comrades, Naruto says, going back to his Ice Prince mode. Well, I'm thankful, Satsuki says before rolling the scroll up and putting it in her pocket. Good, Naruto says before noticing the small dusting of pink on her cheeks. He felt his own cheeks heat up for no reason. She looks like a cute little kitten. Did I just think that? Naruto asks himself. Naruto looks away so Satsuki doesn't see the blush on his cheeks. Well, enjoy your gift, Naruto says while getting up. I will, Satsuki assures him. Naruto goes back to his seat before waiting for another 30 minutes. Finally, a silver-haired man with one-eyed covered and a typical Jonin outfit opens the door. You're late, Sakura screeches. My first impression of you all, you're boring, meet me on the roof, Kakashi says with an eye smile before disappearing in a poof of smoke. The nerve of that guy, right Naruto-kun, Satsuki-cha. Sakura turned around only for her teammates not to be there. On the roof, Kakashi was waiting for his students before he sees Satsuki and Naruto appear in Shunshin, body flicker. They looked to be separate so they both knew the technique. Looks like I have two prodigies. Well, I guess they are both Uchihas, Kakashi thinks to himself. Minato had told his team that he was an Uchiha but never told them who his father was. Where's your third teammate? Coming up right now, Satsuki answers as Sakura comes up panting. Satsuki sits down in a brooding pose. Sakura keeps her legs close to her chest, and Naruto has his left leg in a half-Indian style with the other knee was pointing up. Like how Gon was sitting when he was waiting for Pito to finish healing that little kid that was close to Meruem. Cuz, we all know that you're not an Uchiha if you don't sit in a cool way. Let's start with introductions, Kakashi says. But how? Sakura asks as the other two resisted the urge to facepalm. Likes, dislikes, hobbies, and dreams for the future, Kakashi says. Can you go first? Sakura asks and Kakashi nods. My name is Hitaki Kakashi. I have some likes and dislikes. You're too young to know my hobbies. Kakashi starts giggling like a pervert. And dreams for the future, never really thought about it. All we learned was his name, was the thought of Team 7. You first Pinky, Kakashi says while pointing at Sakura. My name is Haruno Sakura, my like are. She looks at Naruto and squeals. My dream for the future, she looks at Naruto and squeals again. Hobbies, she looks at Naruto and squeals again. My dream for the future is to gain recognition from my idol and, she looks at Naruto and squeals louder than ever. And I hate Ino pig. Right, okay you next, female emo, Kakashi points at Satsuki. My name is Uchiha Satsuki. I hate a lot of things and don't particularly like anything. I have one goal, I will restore my clan and find out why a certain someone did a certain something, Satsuki says very emo-like. I feel like if she was male, she would be a lot more revenge-based, Kakashi thinks to himself. You next, true emo. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I really don't like anything at all except training. I dislike people who can't tell the difference between a kunai and the scroll that holds it. Hobbies are training, reading, and learning new jutsu. My goal for the future is to protect the village from the outside just like the legendary Sannin Jiraiya, Naruto says in his usual icy tone that made Sakura want to squeal. Well, you are all very interesting, to say the least, Kakashi starts off. Meet me at Training Ground 7 tomorrow. We will be having a survival test. But Kakashi-sensei, we already did survival tests in the academy, Sakura points out. This is a different survival test. This will be a test to see if you deserve to be a shinobi. Out of the 27 graduates, only 9 will become genin, the others will be weeded out and will be sent back to the academy. This test has a 66% failure rate, Kakashi says as he watches the three's eyes widen. Now like I said, tomorrow at 5 AM meet me at Training Ground 7. Oh yeah, don't eat or you'll puke, Kakashi says before sunshining away. There's got to be more than that to this test, think Satsuki, think. Satsuki yells internally. I would recommend eating tomorrow morning, Naruto says while getting up. But Kakashi sends. Sakura starts off but Naruto cuts her off. Kakashi-sensei never said it was forbidden to eat. Besides, he was 3 hours late today so what's to say the same thing won't happen tomorrow, Naruto says. He's right, it's better that you eat than be hungry, Satsuki says. Alright, Sakura yells. She was glad that she was on a team with two extremely smart people like Naruto and Satsuki. Oh, by the way, teams 8 and 10 wanted to meet up after they met their Jonin senseis so would you two like to join me? I'm a little hungry so why not, Satsuki says. Naruto was about to walk away before Satsuki grabbed his collar. I'm not going to be stuck with them for the next hour alone, Satsuki whispers. Fine, Naruto whispers back. I'll come as well, Naruto says. They walk over to the yakiniku place with a very annoyed Naruto and an indifferent Satsuki. When they arrive, they see the others and walk in. How did you get these two to show up? Kiba asks. I have my ways, Sakura says. Time skip. Naruto realizes something. He pulls on Satsuki's sleeve. I don't have any money, Naruto whispers. Why? Satsuki asks. You're an orphan too and you know how much you get. I ended up buying 5 bags of rice since that doesn't go bad and meat is really expensive, but I wanted to make at least some good food for myself, Naruto whispers. Oh right. Well, I'm not paying for your food, Satsuki whispers. What are you two whispering about? Kiba asks. I don't have money to pay for my food, Naruto says while looking away embarrassed. The Ice Prince embarrassed. I need to savor this moment, Kiba says laughing. Kiba, I will shove a kunai down your throat, Naruto says in an icy cold tone that made Kiba shiver. The waitress, who looked to be 16, comes back with the bill before blushing when she sees Naruto and running off. Troublesome looks like the waitress has taken a liking to you, Shikamaru says as Satsuki suddenly feels annoyed. Flirt yourself out of the bill, Kiba says with a shrug. Okay, Naruto says before the waitress comes back. Naruto takes a deep breath before putting on a smile and making his midnight black eyes sparkle. Hey there. I'm kind of running low on money this month and it's on me. Kyyaa. The waitress runs off. Naruto drops the smile and his eyes return their normal cold midnight black. He turns around to see Sakura, Hinata, and Ino unconscious with blood dripping their nose and the boys, plus Satsuki, all blushing while looking away. Naruto knew what had happened. Naruto had always known that he had more of a feminine look to himself. He had a feminine face, besides his jawline which looked like Madara's, and had no hair growing on his face or body. Honestly, you could put a dress and makeup on Naruto and he could be called a female. But that wasn't the reason the boys were blushing. It was his smile. His smile was so bright that it made all the boys blush, including the normally stoic Shino. As for Satsuki, he had no idea. Oi, you guys should wake up the unconscious ones, Naruto says in his normal cold tone that snapped them back to reality. Time skip. Why are you following me? Satsuki asks. My house is this way, Naruto says truthfully. Then why didn't ever see you following me after the academy? Satsuki asks as Naruto walks next to her. Because I would go to train right after the academy, Naruto explains. And in the mornings? Satsuki asks. I would get to the academy early, Naruto explains. How did you run out of money? Even for a packet of beef and 5 bags of rice, you would still have enough for yakiniku, Satsuki points out. Everything is overpriced for me, Naruto explains. Why? I mean, you seem like a pretty nice guy and it's not like you're a perv or anything. So why? Satsuki asks her fellow Raven. Do you really want to know? Naruto asks and Satsuki nods her head. Naruto sighs. Well, get prepared to hate me. Do you know how the Yondaime killed the Kyuubi 13 years ago? Naruto asks and Satsuki nods. What does that have to do with anything? Satsuki asks. You cannot kill a Biju since it's a large amount of chakra with a soul and emotions. So instead of killing it, he sealed it inside of a child. Satsuki's eyes widened when Naruto said that. That child was you, wasn't it? Satsuki asks quietly and Naruto nods. My mom always told me not to hate without getting to know them. So, I don't hate you if that makes you feel better. Arigato, Naruto says. No problem, Satsuki says with a nod. Well, this is my house. Alright. Bye and call me if you're in trouble, Naruto says with a playful smirk. Satsuki rolls her eyes and also smirks. You do it first, crybaby. Good night, Naruto says with a half salute. Good night, Satsuki says back. Naruto walked to his apartment. When he arrived there, he opened the door and fell onto his bed with his limbs spread out. Is that how it feels like to have friends? Naruto asks himself before curling himself in a ball. Satsuki appeared in his min. He feels his eyelids get heavy, but before he fully drifts off, he sees a red-haired woman and a raven-haired man lay down on either side of him. They didn't exactly look alive. They were transparent and Naruto could see the moonlight through the red-haired woman. Naruto woke up to see the red-haired woman and raven-haired man were gone. He sighed before turning onto his back and looking out of the window. It seemed to be about 3 a.m. so his internal clock was still working. He had about 2 hours to kill before going to meet with his team, but he certainly wasn't going to train on the day of a physical test. He sighed and got up before rubbing his eyes and making a clone to make breakfast. I can make my clones do practically anything, Naruto notes while walking to the bathroom and starting the shower. He waits for the water to finish before stepping in and letting the warm water slide down his neck muscles in perfect 8-pack. Time skip. Naruto sees his two teammates sitting in the middle of training ground 7. He had come about 5 minutes late, but Satsuki was slightly annoyed. "You're late," Satsuki comments in her ever so cold tone. "I don't see sensei here." Naruto replies back with an equally cold tone. The two glared at each other before just looking into each other's eyes. They both feel a foreign heat on their faces and looked away from each other. What just happened? Sakura asks herself. Did you eat, Sakura? Naruto asks in a rough cold voice that made Sakura blush. Sakura felt 2 holes being bored into the back of her head and she turned around to see Satsuki glaring at her. "Yeah," Sakura squeaks out while looking away from the semi-jealous Satsuki. Time skip. "Yo," Kakashi says with an eye smile. "You're late," Sakura screeches as Naruto and Satsuki glare at the silver-haired Jonin. Kakashi shuddered under the glare of the two Uchihas but continued nonetheless. "You guys don't look hungry," Kakashi comments. "Yeah, we ate because we aren't stupid," Satsuki says in an icy cold tone. "Right," Kakashi says with an eye smile before Naruto got straight to the point. "What are we doing?" Naruto asks in an icy tone. "All you have to do is take these bells from me before 12, Kakashi says, noting that it's almost 11. "But Kakashi-sensei," Sakura starts off in her annoying tone. "There are only 2 bells." Kakashi gives his classic eye smile. "That there are, let me explain. Only 2 of you will be passing while the other will be sent back to the academy. Like I said yesterday, only 9 of the original 27 graduates will be passing." Kakashi finishes off in the most serious tone they have ever heard from the Jonin. Satsuki grits her teeth. "How am I supposed to find out why Itachi did what she did when I can't even become a ninja?" Satsuki looks up and glares at Kakashi with the force of 10,000 Hyoten, ice release, users. Naruto was thinking extremely hard about it. This test has to have a twist to it. "Damn this silver-haired asshole," Naruto thinks while glaring at the same force of Satsuki. Kakashi, seeing their glares, sighs internally. "How am I supposed to keep those promises when I have 2 emos?" Flashback. "Hey, Kakashi," Minato says to his student as they sit in the park. "Yes, sensei?" Kakashi asks the Yondaime. "If something happens to me and Kushina, promise me that you'll look after my son." Kakashi looks at his sensei and nods. "I will, sensei." Kakashi looks at his father figure. "I want him to look up to you as either a sensei or an older brother," Minato comments. End flashback. Flashback. Itachi was running through the forest, after committing the Uchiha massacre, until she sees an Anbu. Silver hair must be Kakashi-kun, Itachi thinks before landing in front of him. "Itachi, why?" Kakashi asks as tears fall from his eyes. "Can you keep in sulfur monosulfide ranked secret?" Itachi asks and Kakashi nods. "The Uchiha clan were planning a coup d'état and I needed to end it. I promised Shisui I would. The only others who know about this are Hokage-sama and Danzo-sama," Itachi says as Kakashi's eyes widen. "Itachi." Kakashi starts off but Itachi takes off Kakashi's Anbu mask and puts a finger over his lips. "Can you promise me another thing?" Itachi asks and Kakashi nods once more. "I left my little sister alive and told her to get stronger to find out why. I plan to tell her one day but I need her to get stronger to fight off the council as well as Danzo-sama," Itachi says while putting her hand on Kakashi's cheek. "What do you need me to do?" Kakashi asks. "Look after her, she will turn 12 in about 4 years so I need you to watch over her, from afar at least." Kakashi nods before his eyes widen again. Naruto. Kakashi starts off thinking he failed his sensei. "Naruto, although an Uchiha, had nothing to do with the coup so I left him alive as well," Itachi assures him while slowly rubbing Kakashi's cheek with her thumb. Itachi was one of the few who knew of Naruto's secret after the Hokage told her. Kakashi looks up and their eyes meet. They get closer and closer until their lips finally meet. They continue to kiss for another 2 minutes before breaking the kiss for air. "What will you do now?" Kakashi asks while putting their foreheads together. I'm going to join a group named the Akatsuki to spy from the inside, Itachi replies. Be safe, please. I've lost too much and I can't lose you as well, Kakashi begs the Uchiha. I will, I promise Kakashi-kun, Itachi replies while giving him one of her rare, beautiful, smiles. Goodbye, Itachi-hime, Kakashi says sadly. You say goodbye as we'll never see each other again, Itachi says as tears stream from her eyes. This is not goodbye, this is a see you another time. So Itachi is the same age as Kakashi, 18. Kakashi and the other Jonin are aged down while Itachi is aged up. I can't have a 13-year-old going out with a 21-year-old, that would be pedophilia. End flashback. The two not even friends, soon to be lovers, continue to glare at the silver-haired Jonin. Itachi, Minato-sensei help me, Kakashi thinks, crying anime tears internally. So you're saying that you're making a test on removing one of us when we clearly need 3 genin and 1 jonin, right? Naruto asks skeptically. Damn this genius. Yes, Kakashi says, try not to show any emotion and failing pathetically. Why? Why would you want to get rid of a member of a team? Even the Manji formation, the most basic formation a 4-man team can do, needs 3 genin and 1 jonin. So why in the name of Kami would you want to kick a person from the team? Naruto asks Kakashi. Satsuki's eyes widen and finally understands. The only other logical explanation is this test is a lie and there's another purpose. As Naruto said, we need 4 people to do the Manji formation and Konoha is known for our teamwork. Satsuki explains and Sakura finally gets it. Nice job, Uchiha Hime. Naruto whispers to Satsuki, causing her to blush. Thanks, Satsuki mutters. So, what do you have to say for yourself, sensei? Naruto asks in his usual icy tone which makes Kakashi shudder. I say, go. Kakashi yells causing the 3 to jump into the trees. So the point of this test is teamwork? Satsuki asks herself. Uchiha Hime, Naruto whispers causing Satsuki to turn around and throw a punch at Naruto, who just caught the punch in his hand. It's just me, Naruto whispers to Satsuki while letting go of her hand. Don't scare me like that. Satsuki whisper yells. Well, don't be so scared all the time, Naruto calmly replies. I'm not scared. Satsuki whisper yells. I'm just alert, she says while turning away with a huff. From what I heard earlier, you know that we need to work together, am I correct? Naruto asks. Yeah, I know, Satsuki says before they hear Sakura scream. Here's the plan. I'll distract the silver-haired asshole while you go help Pinky, deal? Naruto asks. Deal, Satsuki says before running off. Naruto jumps down in the middle where Kakashi was reading an orange book. Seems like you either got bored or you're just stupid to think you're a match for me, Kakashi says while looking up from his book. Well, I did get bored but I know that I can't beat you. You're a jonin while I'm fresh out of the academy. Not to mention, you seem to have a reputation as a copycat of some sort, Naruto rants in his normal cold tone. Looks like someone their homework, Kakashi says. I guess you could say that, Naruto says before grabbing a kunai out of his bag. Let's dance. He throws the kunai up in the air before making a single horse seal. Kaden. Goka Mekyaku, fire style, majestic destroyer flame. Naruto says as Kakashi's eyes widen. If I get hit by this, I'll be burnt to a crisp. I know he's an Uchiha and all but the last Uchiha to know that was Minato-sensei. Well, I guess Naruto is his son. Using sweeten is out of the question cuz I'll die from the water boiling so I only have one option. Run like a coward, Kakashi thinks before jumping out of the way. Kyuupo. Hai no Muteki, Kyuubi art. Fire invulnerability. Naruto thinks to himself. Hai no Muteki was one of the many abilities Naruto learned from Kurama. The jutsu made him invulnerable to his own fire so he's easily able to walk through the hottest of his own flames. Naruto catches the kunai before running through the flames and charges at Kakashi who is surprised by the raven's appearance. How did he get through the flames without getting burnt? Not even his clothes are burnt so how? Kakashi asks himself. Naruto runs at Kakashi before grabbing a scroll out of his pocket and unsealing a sword. And he knows Kenjutsu? Kakashi asks while dodging a slice from Naruto. Uchiha Hime, anytime now, Naruto thinks while throwing his sword at Kakashi's head. Kakashi, with all of his battle experience, dodges the sword. Naruto smirks before substituting himself with the sword. He substituted himself with the sword? Kakashi dodges Naruto's kunai strike. Naruto substitutes himself with the sword and smirks. Why would he substitute himself with his sword when it's on near falling on the ground? Kakashi asks himself. Naruto disappears in a black flash and appears where his sword was, which was right behind Kakashi. Hirishin? Kakashi asks before Naruto tries to cut his head off. Kakashi dodges the sword and sees some weird-looking writing on the handle of the katana. Kakashi looks back at Naruto and sees his sclera, the white part of the eye, start to turn black. Why are his sclerae, plural, turning black? I'll use his confusion and take the bells, Naruto thinks while throwing his kunai at Kakashi and teleporting to it. He goes for a forward pierce, but it only cut part of Kakashi's arm. Where the hell is Uchiha Hime, and why do I keep calling her that? It's because you love her, Kurama teases in that annoying voice we all know. Shut up Kurama, Naruto thinks embarrassed. Naruto throws his kunai at the ground before teleporting to the kunai and going for the bells. So close, Naruto thinks as his middle finger barely touches the bell. Damn it, Naruto yells internally before trying to slash Kakashi with his sword. Kakashi was about to dodge until he feels something hot behind him. He looks behind himself to see a giant fireball, Court of Satsuki. He quickly substitutes himself with a long, dodging both the fireball and Naruto. Bad news for the latter, he was heading straight for the fireball and had no way to stop it. Naruto gets hit by the fireball as Satsuki takes a sharp inhale. I hope he didn't die, I mean, he was actually kind of pleasant to talk to and not annoying, Satsuki thinks. When the smoke clears, it reveals a very annoyed Naruto who is giving Satsuki an icy cold glare. What the hell? Naruto yells at the other Uchiha. Naruto's clothes were all burnt and his sclerae were white again. Sumimasen, a more formal way of saying sorry than Gomen. Satsuki says sarcastically. TCH, Naruto says while looking away. Ah, is little emo mad, Satsuki teases. You're more emo than I am, Naruto says with a tick mark on his forehead. Let's ask Kakashi-sensei, Satsuki says while turning to where Kakashi was hiding in the trees. Fine then, Naruto says while turning to the same area and locking eyes with Kakashi. They knew where I was? Also, why are they arguing like an old married couple? Kakashi asks himself. Oi, Ginpatsu no Baka, silver-haired idiot, who's more emo? Naruto asks as Satsuki snickers. I hate these kids, you are, Naruto, Kakashi says. I am not, Naruto yells with a tick mark. Sure you're not, Satsuki says. Also, Sakura now. Satsuki yells before Sakura comes behind Kakashi and tries to punch him. Shanuru. Sakura yells while punching Kakashi in the back. Kakashi stumbles off of the tree right in the pathway of Naruto and Satsuki. The two use their full speed and take off towards the Jonin who is still dazed at the strength of Sakura's attack. Naruto and Satsuki grab the bells and smirk. Here, you can have mine. I could care less if I pass. Maybe I can go to the Anbu, Naruto says muttering that last part. Satsuki was the only one that heard him. Naruto throws Sakura his bell. You can have mine. Maybe I can go to the Anbu instead, Satsuki mutters the last part. Naruto was the only one that heard her. Satsuki throws her bell to Naruto. No, you two were able to find out the true purpose of this test. You should have mine, Satsuki-chan, Sakura says while throwing Satsuki her bell. I don't want to sit through 1,000 more years of this, so you all pass. Well, you all knew you were going to pass anyways, Kakashi mutters the last part. Yay, Sakura cheers. Woohoo, Naruto sarcastically cheers, in a monotone voice, while lazily pumping his hand into the air. Satsuki grunts. Well, there's only 2 lunches so you guys have to decide who gets it and who doesn't, Kakashi says. I think my parents are eating lunch right now so you two can have it, Sakura says with a smile. Arigato, the 2 Uchihas say. Sakura waves before running off towards her house. You two will have to stay here and eat since I don't trust you two to give my bento boxes back, Kakashi says with an eye smile. Fine, both of them say. They were both fine with it though since they wanted to get to know the other person more. The whole time they were talking about training, hobbies, how being an orphan affects them, cooking recipes, and other stuff that made them closer. Kakashi was happy that the two emos of his team were getting closer. They were so infatuated with their conversation that they totally forgot about their food. I would like to point out that it's almost 4 p.m. and you two have been taking a bite every 5 minutes. Please just finish your food, me leaving won't mean your conversation will end as well, Kakashi says to the two. Sumimasen, the two say before finishing their food and handing the bento boxes to Kakashi. Well, I'll be going now, Kakashi says before giving them a half salute and disappearing in a poof of smoke. So, you know Kenjutsu? Satsuki asks. Yeah, want me to teach you? Naruto asks. Sure, Satsuki says with a nod. They both get up and Naruto gets out a scroll. He unseals the contents of the scroll and throws Satsuki the wooden sword. A wooden sword? Satsuki asks with a cute pout. I literally just asked myself what I'm doing with my life. It's almost 2 a.m. and I'm sitting here on my bed listening to Reddit React videos BTMXR plays while writing fanfics. Maybe summer school for extra credit was a good idea. SMH. Naruto feels his cheeks heat up when seeing Satsuki's pout. Well, before you can do moves like this, Naruto says while unsheathing his sword. He does some clean slashes and throws his sword up in the air and catching it. He resheathes his sword and looks back to see a stunned Satsuki. You need to learn the basics and how to not hurt yourself while using your sword. Wow, Satsuki says before remembering the fight with Kakashi. Hey, why did your sclerae turn black when you were fighting Kakashi-sensei? That's just something that happens when I use too much power, Naruto says. Were you going full strength? Satsuki asks. No, I'm better at using two swords. Were you? Naruto asks. No, there really wasn't a point, Satsuki says while grabbing the hilt of the wooden sword. She gets in her best stance before Naruto stops her. Like this, Naruto says while unsheathing his sword and getting in a stance. Satsuki tries her best to copy Naruto's stance with her Sharingan but she couldn't seem to get it. You're trying to copy my exact stance. What we need is a stance better for you and lucky for you. Naruto-sensei just happens to be proficient in the art of the sword, Naruto says with a wise smirk. Naruto gets behind Satsuki and grabs her hands. What are you doing? Satsuki asks embarrassed. Teaching you how to use a sword, Naruto whispers as Satsuki suppresses a grunt when she feels Naruto's hot breath on her neck. Put your hands like this, Naruto whispers while shifting Satsuki's hands into position. Move your leg back until you feel it touching my leg, Naruto orders in a soft, silky voice. Satsuki does his orders and feels Naruto's leg against her own. There, now get comfortable with this position and remember is. Burn it into your mind and write it into your DNA. Isn't that a bit overkill? Satsuki asks while doing what Naruto ordered. You'll get it in a second, Naruto says and waits a few minutes. Now, get out of the stance, Naruto orders and Satsuki does just that. The stance I just showed you focuses on your speed rather than your strength. It's the classic strategy of using your opponent's strength against them and using your speed to overpower them. That makes sense, Satsuki says with a nod. Now get back into the stance, Naruto orders. Satsuki does as told and Naruto nods. Good job, the conversation about the pros of the stance was a way to distract you and get your mind off of how the stance looked. I wanted to see if you remembered then stance even after I tried to make you forget. Now here comes the hard part. Swing. Huh? Satsuki asks. Swing your sword, Naruto says while unsheathing his sword and getting into the same position Satsuki is in. Swing exactly like I'm about to swing, Naruto orders while swinging his sword. Satsuki repeats the way Naruto did it and got it perfect the first time. Looks like I got a Kenjutsu prodigy, Naruto says with a wise smirk that made Satsuki blush. Now, swing your sword till you feel your arms starting to fall off. What? Satsuki yells. I won't make you do it alone though. I'll do it as well. Naruto gets in his own stance that compensates for both speed and strength. They both start to swing their swords up and down and up and down. Time skip. It had been a couple of hours and it was currently 7:30 p.m. Satsuki's arms felt like jello and she could barely stand. She was panting like crazy and she was barely keeping her consciousness. Finally, she gave in to her desires and was about to collapse before she felt herself fall on something. You did good today, Naruto speaks in a soft voice. Arigato, Satsuki says while putting her chin on Naruto's shoulder. You want to pick up food on your way home since I doubt you can lift your hands to cook, Naruto points out. Sure, you choose where I pick up food, Satsuki orders. Ichiraku's it is, Naruto says while putting hands under Satsuki's thighs to hold her better. The whole time they were walking to the ramen shop, Naruto was getting glares and Satsuki was getting really annoyed by it. She would give an icy glare to anyone who dared to glare at Naruto. She didn't know why, but she was starting to have a protective feeling over the Raven. She was fine with it since he was helping her get stronger to find out why her older sister did what she did. Here we are, Naruto says while opening the curtain and walking in. Hey old man, Ayame ne-chan. Ah Naruto, and I see you have a guest, Tuchi says while pointing at Satsuki. Hello, I'm Uchiha Satsuki. If I could lift my arms to greet you, I would, Satsuki says while blushing since she was still on Naruto's back. Did you put her through Kenjutsu training? Ayame asks. Yup, Naruto says. Naruto catches Satsuki's confused look and decides to explain. Every day after I did Kenjutsu training, I wouldn't be able to move my arms, so I would come here and they would make me food. They're some of the few people in the village who don't hate me, Naruto explains. I see, Satsuki says. Naruto sets her down on one of the stools and orders as usual. Can I just have some normal miso with strips of beef, please? Satsuki asks. Satsuki was cold to her classmates but not to random people at restaurants who were super nice. Coming right up, Tuchi says before making 2 bowls of ramen. He sts it down in front of the two until Satsuki realizes something. I can't move my arms, Satsuki says as Naruto slurps up some ramen. I'll feed you, Ayame says. I used to feed Naruto when he couldn't move his arms either. This is embarrassing, Satsuki says. If you're going to do Kenjutsu training, abandon all your pride until after you're a master cuz you look stupid as shit when training and afterward, Naruto says. If it makes you feel better, you were able to last longer than I was when I started and people called me a stamina monster. It does, Satsuki says as Ayame feeds her. This is the most embarrassing thing I've ever done. Well, that might change after the things Naruto will put you through in order to become a Kenjutsu master, Ayame says with a smile that looked too sweet. There's a reason Naruto is able to swing a sword all day without collapsing. I see, Satsuki says. T had been about 2 weeks since Naruto had been training Satsuki in Kenjutsu. She had gotten a lot better and had been able to swing the sword the whole day without collapsing, but it left her arms extremely sore. Team 7 had also been doing D-rank missions, but it annoyed the crap out of Naruto and Satsuki. They were the Ice Prince and Princess after all. The only time they smiled was around each other, but they didn't smile around anyone else, well except the Hokage. The Hokage was like their grandfather and took care of both of them the best he could, but he couldn't do a lot due to the council breathing down his necks at all times. Today was a sparing day for Team 7 training. Alright, Naruto and Satsuki. You two spar, Kakashi orders. Naruto and Satsuki get in the circle. Hajime, Kakashi yells lazily. The two trade blows for a bit, but it ends with Naruto straddling Satsuki and holding her hands with his left hand. What's wrong, Uchiha-hime? Naruto asks while breathing on her neck. Satsuki, feeling Naruto's not breath on her neck, lets out an extremely small and quiet moan. Naruto was the only one who heard her. Satsuki, after hearing herself moan, had to ask Naruto a question to distract Naruto. Who are you? Satsuki asks. Naruto realizes it's time. He gets even closer to her ear and whispers. Uzumaki Namikaze. Uchiha Naruto, Naruto whispers as he feels Satsuki tense. After training, come to my house and I'll tell you the story, Naruto says. You better not be lying, Satsuki whispers. I put my role as your Kenjutsu sensei on the line, Naruto whispers. Okay Naruto, you win, Kakashi says. Naruto gets off of Satsuki and they both get up. Wow Naruto-kun, that was so cool, Sakura squeals. Sure, Naruto says, back to his normal Ice Prince mode. You both did good, Kakashi says with an eye smile. Whatever. The two grunt at the same time. Satsuki's head snaps towards the Raven. So he understands and knows how to speak the language, Satsuki thinks. Well, that's enough for today. See you guys, Kakashi says before disappearing in a poof of smoke. Well, I'll see you guys later, Sakura says before walking off. The Ice Prince and Princess just ignore the pinkhead and walk towards Naruto's home. They were walking in silence the whole time since neither knew what to say. They finally arrived at Naruto's apartment and walked in. Tadaima, Naruto yells. No reply as usual. We can discuss this over dinner. Go freshen up first though, Naruto says. Hi, Oto-san. Yes father. Satsuki says. Naruto just rolls his eyes with a small smile gracing his lips. Wait, what clothes am I supposed to wear? Satsuki asks. Naruto motions Satsuki to follow him into his bedroom and she follows. He opens a drawer and hands a blue shirt that had the Uchiha symbol on the back and some Anbu pants. The Uchiha crest. Satsuki mutters while tracing her fingers along the fan. Well, I am proud I'm an Uchiha but I can't wear it in public, Naruto says. I'll go make dinner, Naruto says while walking out of the room. If you come in here I'll kill you, Satsuki says before she was pinned to the bed by Naruto. You sure you can kill me? Naruto asks before he feels Satsuki's legs wrap around his waist and flip him over. I do, Satsuki says as Naruto blushes. Satsuki smirks before letting him go and going into the bathroom. Naruto sighs before going into the kitchen to start to make food. I just wanted to say right here that this is going to be a light alternate universe. I say that 'cause video games are made earlier than in Boruto. They were made when Naruto and the others were 4 and when Itachi and Kakashi were 11. Satsuki walks into the bathroom and was surprised. I didn't expect it to be so clean. Now that I think about it, his room was super clean as well. Satsuki thinks before holding the clothes up to her nose and taking a sniff. Smells like roses, Satsuki comments internally. She took off her clothes and stepped into the shower that was already running. The water dripped down Satsuki's skin as she sighed blissfully. Damn, a hot shower after training is great. Naruto was right in telling me to do this. Satsuki thinks before looking over to where the shampoo and conditioner is. Surprising, he uses conditioner. Actually, it's not that surprising since he seems really proud of his hair. Satsuki thinks before putting some shampoo in her hair and washing it out. She puts some conditioner in her hair and washes it out. She gets out of the shower and uses a towel that Naruto gave to her earlier before putting the clothes Naruto gave her on. She didn't know why but she kept getting this warm, fuzzy feeling when Naruto did things to her. She walked out of his room and walked into the kitchen where she saw Naruto setting down 2 plates of tomato pasta. I saw you eating tomatoes after missions and when you brought snacks before we started your kenjutsu training so I assumed you liked tomatoes, Naruto says. Yeah, I love tomatoes, Satsuki says before sitting down across from Naruto. Itadakimasu, they both say before starting to eat their food. They eat in silence before Naruto decides to break it. It all started on January 25th, the day my father was born. My father's name was Namikaze Uchiha Minato, son of Namikaze Yuki and Uchiha Madara, Naruto says as Satsuki's eyes widen. You mean the Uchiha Madara? The only man who was able to stand up to the Shoden Hokage? Satsuki asks. Yeah, Naruto says with a nod. My grandfather, grandmother, and father lived in the forest near a town to get supplies every month or so. Everything was peaceful until a random group of shinobi killed my grandmother and nearly killed my father when my grandfather was out in town. When he came back, he killed the shinobi and dropped my father off at Konoha. That was the last time my father saw my grandfather. After that, my father grew up in the leaf and fell in love with my mother who was a little hot-tempered so she wasn't too interested until my father saved her or something like that. My mother was the previous Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi so she was the perfect target to many people including some masked asshole. Wait, how do you know all this? Satsuki asks. The stuff about my grandparents, my dad basically left me a note through a genjutsu with his Sharingan, and the stuff about my parents, the Kyuubi told me, Naruto explains. The Kyuubi told you, Satsuki yells. Yeah, he isn't that bad. He actually was my first friend ever, Naruto says with a small smile. Didn't he destroy the village and kill a whole lot of people? Satsuki asks. This is why he hates all Uchihas except me, Naruto mutters. Damn right I do, Kurama says. Satsuki isn't that bad, she just doesn't understand yet, Naruto retorts. Why am I defending her? Naruto asks himself. Let me explain, on the night of my birth, my mother was attacked by a masked man and was forced to release Kurama, the Kyuubi. He then controlled him with his Sharingan. He was a rogue Sharingan user, although I'm unsure if he's an Uchiha, but he claimed to be my grandfather. My father, who knew my grandfather's chakra, knew it wasn't him. So yeah, 12 years later and here we are. My birthday is October 10th. I'm the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. I'm the son of Namikaze Uchiha Minato, the Yondaime Hokage, and Uzumaki Kushina, the Red Death, and the grandson of Uchiha Madara and Namikaze Yuki. That's who I am. Naruto finishes in his usual icy cold tone that made Satsuki shiver. She forgot how cold Naruto could be. Naruto looked her in the eyes before activating his 3-tomo Sharingan. And here is my Sharingan. She sat there for a minute before a tear slipped from her eye. I'm not alone, Satsuki mutters before Naruto puts his hand over her hand. You never were, even when I didn't tell you I won Uchiha, Naruto says with a warm smile that made Satsuki blush. He deactivates his 3-tomo Sharingan and takes his hand off her hand. Hold on, I want to go get you something, Naruto says while getting up. He walks into a different room and comes back with a long cardboard box. I should have wrapped it, but I didn't feel like it, Naruto says as Satsuki giggles. Did I just giggle? Satsuki asks out loud. Well, it sounded cute, Naruto mutters, but Satsuki heard him. Satsuki blushed at his comment. Anyways, Naruto hands her the box. Open it up, Naruto says, and Satsuki nods. She opens the box and gasps at its contents. There was an identical version of Naruto's katana, but instead of fully black it was black and red. The hilt of the katana had the Uchiha symbol on it and it seemed to be made out of a grippy acrylic. She unsheathed it slightly to show a red and black blade just like Naruto's. She touched the edge of the blade and felt how sharp it was. She sheathed the sword and put the box down before pouncing on Naruto and giving the tightest hug she could give. Thank you so much. I love it so much, Satsuki says while hugging the raven tighter. Shit, what do I do? Naruto asks himself. Hug her back, you baka, Kurama says. Right, Naruto says before slowly wrapping her arms around Satsuki. They hug for a bit longer before they slowly, reluctantly, pull back. I'm glad you like it. How much was it? Satsuki asks. I found this guy who sold it to me at a reasonable price. He said that he knew my father and was the one who made my father's kunai. Even if it was overpriced, I would have still bought it for you, Naruto says with a smile. Thank you, Satsuki says. And now we can do harder training and I can start you on running down a cliff while avoiding obstacles and cutting things, Naruto says with a too sweet smile. Yes, this is the Urokodaki training. No, I don't care. Oh, we can also start on you using a weighted sword to make your strikes fast. Right, Satsuki says. They hear a thunder crash which results in Satsuki yelping, jumping into Naruto's arms, and burying her head into his chest. Didn't know you were scared of thunder, Naruto says as Satsuki pulls her head out of his chest. I was off guard, Satsuki says with a pout while looking away and crossing her arms under her chest. Naruto looks out the window and realizes it's raining pretty hard. You should stay here for the night, it's raining pretty hard and I don't want you catching a cold. Plus, Kakashi-sensei said we don't have training tomorrow so you can stay here, Naruto says. Isn't there only one room? Satsuki asks. Yeah, but I can take the couch, Naruto says as Satsuki nods. Just sleep in those clothes and I have shorts if you want to be more comfortable, Naruto says. Sure, Satsuki says as they both go to Naruto's bedroom. Naruto opens a drawer and gives Satsuki a pair of shorts that have the Uchiha clan symbol. You can keep the clothes, Naruto says. Thanks, Satsuki says. Naruto leaves the room before Satsuki takes off the pants and putting on the shorts. Time skip. Satsuki walks over to the door and tells Naruto that she's going to sleep where she sees him playing on a game console. You play video games? Well yeah, what else do you think I do when I'm not training, eating, sleeping, or doing missions? Naruto asks. True, what are you playing? Satsuki asks. Ultimate Ninja Storm 4, Naruto says. Who are you playing as? Satsuki asks. You play? What do you think I do when I'm no training, eating, sleeping, or doing missions? Satsuki asks with a smirk. Touché, Naruto mutters while not looking up. My grandpa. I see. Who's your main? Naruto asks. Depends, but I like playing as my cousin Shisui, Satsuki says. Aren't you as good as him when using Shunshin? Naruto asks. What makes you say that? Satsuki asks. There's a reason why I chose your kenjutsu style as one that makes your speed better, Naruto says. My grandpa's so op. I hate people who only use the Shoden, Satsuki says. I know right? It's so damn annoying, so that's why I use my dad or my grandpa to beat them. Just cause they use one of the strongest characters in the game, they're not going to win since they don't know how to use combos. I know. Anyways, I'm going to sleep, Satsuki says while waving. Naruto waves back before Satsuki walks into her room. Time skip. Satsuki woke up at about 2 a.m. after falling asleep around 10 p.m. She walks over to the balcony where she sees Naruto sitting in the same pose that he was sitting in on the day of the introductions. What are you still doing up? Satsuki asks while rubbing her left eye. I woke up about 10 minutes ago and came to look at the moon, Naruto replies while not turning back. His balcony had a covering over it so the rain wouldn't hit him. Wanna come watch with me? Sure, Satsuki replies while walking next to Naruto and sitting next to him. The balcony was a little small, but it was big enough for both of them to sit down. Not to mention, they were both pretty skinny, so they were both able to sit there. Satsuki was gaining more muscle but not enough to actually show. I don't know why, but I love looking at the moon when it rains, Naruto says while not facing Satsuki. Satsuki giggles slightly. You remind me of my older sister. She used to love looking at the moon, so I gave her the name Tsukihime, the moon princess. I have no idea why, but she loved that name, Satsuki thinks before her mood dropped at the mention of her older sister. You okay? You seem a bit down, Naruto comments. My older sister was the one who killed our clan. She told me to get stronger to find out why, Satsuki says. Well, if you need help with getting it out of her, I'm always here for you, Naruto says with a smile. They sit in silence for a bit, just listening to the drops of rain the whole time. Thank you for everything, Satsuki says. Anytime, Uchiha Hime, Naruto says. It's been about a month since Satsuki had stayed over at Naruto's and she had gotten way better at using her katana. Her speed with the sword had also increased dramatically. Right now though, they were in the Hokage's office. I'll get you today, Ji-chan, old man. A voice yells. A little kid with short brown hair, a black headband holding up his hair, a blue scarf, a yellow shirt with the Konoha emblem, gray cargo shorts, and ninja sandals runs in before tripping over a random piece of wood. Konohamaru, what did I tell you? Naruto asks with a sigh. Satsuki and Sakura were shocked that Naruto was speaking to this random kid. Well, not random. The honorable grandson of the Sandaime Hokage. A wise ninja is always ready for war, but never seeks it out. Naruto ni-chan, Konohamaru mutters. Whoever knows where that quote's from gets 10 billion points. That shocked Satsuki and Sakura even more. Ni-chan, they both yell internally. He's my second student, but I rather he calls me that than sensei, Naruto explains. Second student? Kakashi and Sakura ask. Who's your first? The Hokage asks. This one, Naruto says while putting his hand on top of Satsuki's head. He teaches me kenjutsu, Satsuki says while moving Naruto's hand off her head, ignoring the burning in her cheeks. So that's how you've gotten so strong when I haven't taught you shit, Kakashi says in realization. What was that? The Hokage asks. I haven't taught them shit except for teamwork exercises, Kakashi says in the most nonchalant voice. Right, the Hokage says. So, have you been practicing? Naruto asks Konohamaru. Yeah, check this out, Konohamaru says before doing some hand signs slowly. Satsuki, the Hokage, and Kakashi recognize the jutsu by the hand signs and are curious. How well did Naruto teach him? They all think. Kaden. Gokakyu no Jutsu. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. Konohamaru yells. He breaths out a fireball that was about 5 feet in width and 5 feet in height. Pretty standard for maybe a genin, but nothing compared to what Naruto, Kakashi, and Satsuki could do. Good job, you did well, Naruto says while patting Konohamaru's head. Well, he did amazing for his first time, Kakashi and Hiruzen think. Damn, he's an even better teacher than I thought, Satsuki thinks impressed. I need to step it up or I'll end up losing to this brat, Sakura thinks. She made up her mind, she would ask Kakashi for more training exercises. Well, I'm gonna go. Bye Naruto ni-chan. Naruto gives a half salute as Konohamaru runs off. Well, Team 7, I have painting Mrs. Yumi's fence, cleaning the Inuzuka dog pen, the Hokage was cut off when Naruto released his ki, killer intent, and gave the Hokage the coldest, meanest glare that even sent shivers down the Hokage's spine. "I will murder the next D-rank client," Naruto says in the most serious voice the Hokage had ever heard. "C rank it is," the Hokage says. "Hold Hokage-sama, I must object to this," Iruka says, who was sitting next to Hiruzen. "They're genin straight out of the academy, you can't possibly send them out this early." "I don't think you understand how strong these three are," Kakashi says. "Three?" Satsuki and Naruto think. "Give this one about a year or so," Kakashi starts before placing his hand on top of Naruto's head. "And he'll far surpass me." "And how can you be so sure?" Iruka asks. "Iruka, he and Satsuki were able to take the bells from me, which no one was able to do. And the punch from Sakura was surprisingly strong," Kakashi says, boosting Sakura's self-esteem by a bit. Iruka sighs. "Fine. Mr. Tazuna, you may come in now," the Hokage says as a drunk man walks in. "I thought I paid for ninja, not two emos, a pinky, and a cyclops," Tazuna says. "Never mind, I'm killing him as well," Naruto says while gripping both his sword. He now kept both swords out on his waist. "Don't mind me taking a break since EP 1 and 2 of Rick and Morty came out, so I'ma watch it." "Whoa now, we can't have you killing clients," Kakashi says while giving Tazuna a side glare. "Fine," Naruto mutters while losing his grip on his swords. "Okay Team 7, we'll meet at the bridge in an hour." "Don't be late," Kakashi says. "Rich coming from you," Naruto says before shining away. Time skip. Satsuki walked to the gate where she sees Naruto hanging from the top of the gate. "How are you doing that?" Satsuki asks. Naruto drops down next to Satsuki and gets into his sensei mode. "Put your foot on the wall," Naruto orders. Satsuki looks at him weirdly before following his orders and putting her foot on the wall. "Now slowly add chakra into the bottom of your feet until you feel your foot stick." Satsuki closes her eyes and slowly channels chakra to her feet. Her eyes snap open when she feels her foot sticking. "Whoa," Satsuki says. "Now, put your other foot on the wall and walk up," Naruto orders. Satsuki does as told and tries walking up. Keyword tries. She got about 2 steps up before she fell. Before she could fall on her back, Naruto catches her bridal style and puts her on her feet. "Damn, I was barely able to do a step on my first try." "How did you learn this?" Satsuki asks. "Stealing scrolls and getting taught from the Kyuubi," Naruto explains as Satsuki nods. "Hey guys, what are you doing?" Sakura asks who just came. "I'm teaching her this," Naruto says while walking up the wall. "Wow, how do you do that?" Sakura asks. Satsuki repeats the steps to Sakura. "It's pretty hard, but you might find it easy due to your low chakra level." Sakura does the steps and walks next to Naruto. "Maybe I should work on my chakra level," Sakura mutters. "Or your strength," Naruto suggests. "Why?" As Kakashi-sensei said, "Your punch was surprisingly strong. You don't need to use actual physical strength but maybe chakra-enhanced punches like the legendary Sannin Tsunade," Naruto mentions. "You know a lot about the legendary Sannin, don't you, Naruto-kun?" Sakura mentions with a blush. "Sure," Naruto says while flipping down. In the time Naruto and Sakura were talking, Satsuki was now able to walk up and stay there. "Lesson 2 for the both of you," Naruto announces. "Kakashi-sensei won't be here for a while, so we're going to continue," Naruto says. "Walk next to Sakura," Naruto orders Satsuki. Satsuki does his orders before having to dodge some shuriken. "Dodge," Naruto says in a bored voice with his hands around his mouth to project his voice. "A little late for that, don't y'all think?" Satsuki yells. "Both of you dodge when shuriken and kunai come at you. This needs to feel natural to you," Naruto explains. He throws more kunai at Satsuki. Satsuki dodges the kunai but forgets about putting chakra to her feet, which causes her to fall into Naruto's arms. "Come on," Naruto says while chopping her head with his hand. Yeah, Satsuki says while rubbing her head. Time skip. Satsuki and Sakura were panting before Naruto put his hands on their shoulders. He channeled a bit of Kurama's chakra into their chakra system, replenishing both their chakra level and stamina. "How'd you do that?" Sakura asks. "I have my ways," Naruto says. "Yo," they all hear Kakashi say with Tazuna next to him. "You're late," Sakura yells. Sorry, Tazuna wanted to try Konoha's best sake before we left, Kakashi explains. That's actually a reasonable excuse, Naruto mutters. So, shall we leave? Kakashi asks as the team nods. Time skip. I sense some chakra from that puddle, Naruto whispers. Must be someone going after Tazuna, Satsuki whispers back. Kakashi furrows his eyebrows. This was supposed to be a C rank. This should be fun, Naruto mutters as they pass the puddle. A second later, two people pop out of the puddle. One of them wraps their chains around Kakashi and slices him up. One Dao, Mezu couldn't finish as he felt a pain in his neck. What's that pain and why can't I move my body? Why can I see my body over there? Did he slice my head? Oh, he couldn't finish that thought as his head hit the ground. Mezu, Gozu yells. He turns his attention to Naruto who has Mezu's blood over his face. I will make you suffer. Naruto looks at Gozu with just his eyes. He gives Gozu a cold glare which freezes Gozu in his tracks. He puts his sword to Gozu's neck but doesn't slice. One more step and you'll end up like him, Naruto says in a cold tone. Answer my questions and I might let you live. I'll do anything, Gozu says. Who sent you? Naruto asks, eyes cold as the winter night. Gato, Gozu says in a shaky tone. You mean the merchant who sells drugs? Why yes, Gozu says. Well, congrats to you on your reward, Gozu sighs in relief. Have fun seeing your brother in hell, Naruto says before slicing Gozu's throat. The blood spews on Naruto's face giving him a terrifying look. Naruto swipes his sword once to get all the blood off before sheathing both of them. Oi, Ginpatsu no Baka, you aren't fooling anyone by being up there, Naruto says in a bored voice. Kakashi appears next to Naruto with a worried look on his face. Are you okay? You just had your first kill, Kakashi says worriedly. I'm fine. And that wasn't my first kill, Naruto mutters the second part to himself but Satsuki heard him. Flashback. You hear of that battle that was going on near the forest? A kid asks. Yeah, and apparently there are still rogues there, a mother kid says. Might as well check it out. Maybe get a souvenir or get some training in, Naruto thinks. I don't think I'm exactly the most normal 9-year-old. Class dismissed, Iruka says as all the kids run out. Naruto calmly walks out before walking to the forest. He walks in and notices a bunch of claw marks and scattered kunai. Should keep my blades out, Naruto thinks while unsealing both of his swords. He activates his 3 Tomo Sharingan before hiding it behind a genjutsu. He keeps walking forward before he blocks a kunai with his sword. Who's there? Oh, it's just a kid, a shinobi says while coming out. This should be easy. I wouldn't count on that, Naruto says while walking towards the shinobi. Aren't you a brat? The shinobi says with a smirk. The name's Katara Keiji. Uzumaki Naruto, what's it to ya? Naruto asks. You should know the name of the person you're about to die to. What's more, I get to kill the last remaining Uzumaki, Keiji says with a smirk. Is there anyone else with you or is it just you? Naruto asks. Oh, there are a lot more of us but I'm the strongest one, Keiji says smugly. Well then, the rest should be easy, Naruto says with a small smirk gracing his lips. He runs at Keiji and slices his head off immediately. Not much for my first kill. Maybe I should have made it last. Oi, the rest of you come out. Naruto yells in a bored tone. About 20 shinobi come down in front of him as Naruto smirks. Let's dance, Naruto yells. Naruto rushes at the group of shinobi before killing anyone who was so unfortunate to cross his sword. That wasn't any fun, Naruto mutters before Hiri shining home. End flashback. Well Tazuna, Kakashi says with a hint of venom. Why yeah? Mind explaining why Gato is after you? Kakashi asks. I'm sorry, Tazuna says before explaining his whole story. Sakura wasn't really listening as she was still processing that she would one day also have to take a person's life. Satsuki on the other hand had a question for Naruto. How did you know they were there? Satsuki whispers to Naruto. Where the wolf's ears are, the teeth are near, Naruto explains vaguely. That didn't explain it at all, Satsuki says. I sensed their chakra so I knew they were in the puddle, Naruto says with a sigh. You sound like a Viking. The fuck's a Viking? Naruto asks. Haven't you ever read a book? Satsuki asks. I don't read fiction unless it's by Jiraiya of the Sannin. Although, I haven't read Icha Icha Paradise, Naruto explains. Hold on, Jiraiya of the Sannin wrote books and pervy books no less? Satsuki asks. Yeah, haven't you ever read The Tale of an Utterly Gutsy Ninja? Naruto asks as Satsuki shakes her head. Of course you haven't. It's a book almost no one's heard of. The main character even is named after me. Well, more like I was named after him. I see, Satsuki says. Alright Team 7, we'll be going back now, Kakashi says. What? Why? Naruto asks. Those two were Chunin level. Gato definitely hired more shinobi, and what's to say that one of them isn't Jonin? Kakashi asks. What's to say one of them is? Not to mention, I took both of them out easily and Satsuki could probably do the same thing, so I say we go. If you're not up to it, you can go back while I take Tazuna back, Naruto says while giving Kakashi a death glare. Kakashi was actually scared by the glare. Fine, if 2 of the 3 members agree to go on this mission then I'll allow it, Kakashi says while crossing his arms. Naruto and Satsuki raise their hands as Sakura, hesitantly, follows. Okay fine, we can keep going. But if we run into a Jonin, you can't get involved. You're no fun, Naruto says while closing his eyes, putting his hands in his hoodie pockets, and walking away. Time skip. Naruto senses some chakra in a bush and throws his kunai at it. It turns out it was a bunny with Naruto's kunai in its leg. He Hirishins over and picks up the bunny before Hirishining back. I would recommend ducking, Naruto says as everyone ducks. A sword passes above them and gets lodged into a tree. A man jumps on the sword and looks down at the group. Well, if it isn't copycat Kakashi, the man says. Momochi Zabuza, Kakashi says. While you're doing that, I'm going to help this rabbit, Naruto says while sitting crossed-legged. Naruto reaches for the hilt of his sword. He unsheathes and sheathes his sword in a second as a burst of water appears behind him. He looks up with just his eyes and gives Zabuza a death glare. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Naruto says in a cold tone. Zabuza started to sweat before he and Kakashi started their battle. Naruto, in the meantime, took out the kunai and started to use the mystical palm technique. The wound on the rabbit started to heal before Naruto stopped the jutsu before letting the rabbit go. You know medical ninjutsu? Satsuki asks. I know the basics. I can heal minor cuts and animals but nothing beyond that. I learned it just in case I come across an animal that's dying and I can heal it, Naruto explains while getting up. And yes, I will teach you if you want. Hey Naruto-kun, can you also teach me? I don't want to be a burden to you too, Sakura says shyly. Sure, I guess, Naruto says. He focuses his attention on the fight and sees Kakashi and Zabuza walking on water. I haven't been able to learn that yet, Naruto mutters. Don't slip, Naruto yells in a bored tone. Kakashi, not being used to fighting on water regularly, slips. You did the one thing I told you not to do, Naruto says while shaking his head. Suiru no Jutsu, water prison technique. Zabuza says while water forms around Kakashi. Look what you did, now I have to free you, Baka. Naruto yells, irritated with Kakashi. No, you have to escape with Tazuna now. Kakashi yells but it falls on deaf ears. How are we going to do this? Satsuki asks. Naruto throws a couple of smoke bombs on the floor before handing a sword to Satsuki. Remember how I taught you to throw your sword? Yeah, throw your sword at Zabuza and I'll handle the rest, Naruto says. When the smoke clears, Satsuki lines up her throw before throwing the sword at Zabuza. Nice try but it's still not enough, Zabuza says while jumping over the sword. The sword puffs into smoke and there was Naruto aiming his sword at Zabuza. A bunshin? No, those are solid so it has to be a cage bunshin. Impressive, this brat might even be a match for Haku. Naruto throws his sword at Zabuza. When the sword was an inch from his face and Zabuza was about to dodge, he Hirishins to the seal on his sword and grabs it. He grabs the other sword and gets into a slashing position. He slashes both swords down, cutting Zabuza's forearms before Hirishining back to where Satsuki and the others were. Nice plan, Satsuki says. Thanks, thought of it myself, Naruto jokes. So funny, Satsuki says while rolling her eyes. The fight continues until a masked Anbu throws 3 needles into the back of Zabuza's neck. Thank you for. The masked Anbu could not finish their sentence as Naruto was behind them with his sword to their neck. And what do you think you're doing? Naruto asks in a chilling tone. I was saying, thank you for weakening him. I was trying to capture him for months, the Anbu says. Naruto looks over to Kakashi before looking over to Satsuki, Sakura, and Tazuna. This one's definitely lying. I could take them on but I have no backup. Kakashi's winded and Satsuki has to protect the client, so my best choice is to let this faker go. Naruto thinks before retracting his blades and putting them away. TCH. I'll be taking him now, the Anbu says before Kakashi stops them. Let me check if he's really dead first, Kakashi says as the Anbu nods. Kakashi goes over to Zabuza's body before touching his jugular with his 2 fingers. He feels no pulse, so he steps back. I thank you again, the Anbu says before leaving. That damn liar, Naruto mutters before he sees Kakashi collapse. Naruto sighs before going over to Kakashi and grabbing him by the back of his collar. Can you take us to your house? Naruto asks Tazuna. Of course, Tazuna says while leading them. Naruto drags Kakashi, not worrying about his health. I'm still awake, you know, Kakashi says in a weak voice. Even better, Naruto says coldly. You're so cold, Kakashi says before blacking out. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.